Donald Trump issued a sweeping executive order on Tuesday night, January 21st, 2025, just one day after taking back control of the White House. This executive order revokes decades of diversity and affirmative action practices in the federal government that was the legacy of the modern-day civil rights movement. This took place one day after Dr. King Day, and Donald Trump praising Dr. King during his inauguration speech. Now, Trump's executive order is called Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity. Now, that's laughable when you look at some of these nonsensical nominations Donald Trump has made, like Pete Hegseth or Tulsi Gabbard or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Where's the merit there? Where are the qualifications? Now, this executive order revokes one by President Lyndon Baines Johnson on September 24th, 1965, which was Executive Order 11246, which is properly known as affirmative action. This executive order was signed more than 2 years after Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech at the March on Washington, August 28, 1963. Incidentally, the name of the speech was called A Canceled Check, and then it was later called I Have a Dream. I encourage everybody to go to archives.gov, the U.S. National Archives, and read the entire speech if Donald Trump has not removed that from the website. Now, Lyndon Baines Johnson's order, Executive Order 11246, gave the Secretary of Labor the authority to ensure equal opportunity for people of color, especially African Americans and women, in federal contractors, recruitment, hiring, training, and other employment practices. It required federal contractors to refrain from employment discrimination and take affirmative action to ensure equal opportunity, quote, based on color. Civil rights advocates have been anticipating these recent moves from Donald Trump, as we have also seen major corporations like Walmart roll back their diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. The Reverend William Barber of Repairers of the Breach told Axios.com beforehand, before this executive order was signed, that President Johnson's executive order was needed to fight discrimination of that era and is still needed today. Now, Donald Trump's new executive order directs all, quote, executive departments and agencies to terminate all discriminatory and illegal preferences, mandates, policies, programs, activities, guidance, regulations, enforcement actions, consent orders, and requirements. Now, this is continuing to perpetuate the myth that white people are being discriminated against and white people are the main victims of racism. Now, racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, which comes out of the ideology of European white supremacy. Racism occurs when one race of people control the majority of the wealth, power, resources, privileges, benefits, land, access to education, access to opportunity, jobs, wealth, etc., and they use that power to marginalize, subordinate, and do harm to other races of people. Okay, racism is a group-to-group relationship. Now, this executive order extends out to the private sector as well. The private sector, corporations, etc. Quote, Donald Trump says in this executive order, quote, I further order all agencies, federal agencies, to enforce our long-standing civil rights laws and to combat illegal private sector DEI preferences, mandates, policies, and programs. We know that affirmative action in college admissions was overturned by Donald Trump's 6-3 conservative Supreme Court. It was a challenge brought by conservative activist Ed Bloom. He's also the activist who went after the Fearless Fund. Close Trump allies want to dramatically change the government's interpretation of civil rights era laws to focus on, quote unquote, anti-white racism, end quote, anti-white racism rather than discrimination of people of color, especially African Americans. This was reported by Alex Thompson of Axios.com. This is something I've been talking about on the African History Network show, and we've been talking about on Roland Martin Unfiltered as well. And this is all laid out in Project 2025. We know that Russell Vaught, who's known as the architect of Project 2025, has been waging war against diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. Now, corporations had already been rolling back diversity programs and policies in response from attacks from conservative groups, including White House aide Stephen Miller, who was in the first administration and unfortunately is returning in the second administration. Stephen Miller filed multiple lawsuits over corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion programs by his group, America First Legal. Okay, so we're going to see more of this taking place. We know that there were a slew, 46 executive orders done on day one, January 20th, 2025, and basically 78 executive orders and memos that Donald Trump did. Some of those were attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion as well, and he's rolling back a lot of the progress that the Biden-Harris administration has made, especially on behalf of the African Americans. You've heard me before talk about the 36-page document at whitehouse.gov that deals with how the Biden-Harris administration, how their policies are helping the African American community. The name of that document, Fact Sheet, the Biden-Harris administration advances equity and opportunity for Black Americans and communities across the country. This version is from February 27th, 2023. Okay, well, it has been removed from whitehouse.gov. So lawsuits were filed, multiple lawsuits were filed by Stephen Miller against corporate DEI programs by his group, America First Legal. Okay, so you're going to see more of these attacks, more of these executive orders coming from Donald Trump. You're going to see anti-DEI bills being passed through Congress as well. All right, so this is an example of how elections have consequences. This is what I was warning people about going back to 2023, because I've been talking about Project 2025 since 2023. Watch me on the African History Network show on Sundays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Follow me right here on Instagram and YouTube at Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, and on Facebook, The African History Network, The African History Network, and Michael Imhotep on Facebook. And visit my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for my online classes. You can support the work that we do at the African History Network through Cash App, $, TheAHNShow through Cash App, $, TheAHNShow through Cash App, or through PayPal, PayPal.me/TheAHNShow. And also check out the interview that I did with historian Professor Manu Ampim on January 20th, 2025, Dr. King Day, when we dealt with the distortion of the legacy of the revolutionary Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was a deep, almost 2-hour interview, getting deep into the history of Dr. King, the civil rights movement, and dispelling a lot of myths as well. And watch me on Fridays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Roland Martin Unfiltered, where I provide historical and political analysis. I'm not just a historian, I'm also a national political commentator. And that's Roland Martin Unfiltered, Fridays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the Black Star Network. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. And don't blame me because I voted for the black one. So if you voted for Donald Trump, this is your fault. And also, I posted on my Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and here on Instagram as well. Where are all the white women who have benefited from affirmative action and diversity, equity, and inclusion? These measures are hurting you as well. You should be contacting your senator, your members of the House of Representatives, And you should be organizing to fight back against this and fight back against Donald Trump. We know there's talk about economic boycotts against some certain targeted corporations. So white women, you should be speaking as well.